Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in betwixt, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name's Jake, and I'm joined, it's a little bit Trumpian, chaps, it slipped in. My name's Jake. Welcome to the Chaps Chat Cats. I'm joined by Sambo and Johnny. How are we, chaps?
Good.
Very, very well. How are you, Jake?
Oh, smashing. I'm sensational. Can't
Smashing,
wait to go.
darling.
Smashing, man. No, very good. Looking forward to the show tonight. That was bait here to try and lure Sam's Donny Thornbury impression out on the podcast.
I've lost it. I've really lost it. I can't even remember what I used to do. I've lost it. I've tried to do it. I've had to retire that
rambling.
Was rambling.
Noise.
Just
So
like my input on the podcast.
Rambling. Self-burn.
Noise pollution.
We need some canned laughter.
Yeah,
I think for stuff like that.
I need some friends that come in and go, no, your input's really good. Don't say that.
Do you know where we could find them, Sam?
Please
Perhaps your kids.
Okay, yeah, right.
Oh boy. Let he without ramblings cast the first stone. On tonight's episode,
I don't have any stones around me, but I'll find some.
AFLW. The Cats conquer the Giants in round 9. That really will be the bulk of what we talk about here for the next probably about half an hour here on the public part of the show on YouTube. Then we'll dive into deeper thoughts over on Patreon. We'll probably look to do about 45 minutes on the old Patreon, somewhere around that 40-minute mark. For the patrons, which will be extra thoughts from this game. We'll do a little bit of a preview on Friday night's match against the Eagles. And chaps, I also, given we're not quite at the off season, but we're half of our coverage, i.e. the men's, is in the off season. So might even have time to ask you a little bit of an off season question about, I don't know, what movies you've been watching, what games you've been playing. I got to go and see one battle after another at the cinema. I was very impressed with that particular motion picture. So who knows? Plenty of time in the off season to get into that sort of stuff more, but it has been on my mind and it seemed like a better thing for the Patreon part of the show. So if people want the extended version, go on over, sign up for a 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon. Before we get into the show, chaps, officially, we need to say a big Hoops Crew Media Network thank you to our network sponsor, Cyril Cook Florist. You can visit them, www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. You can phone them, 035 222 2244. We can visit them at Shop 12, 11 Leather Street in Breakwater. Tell them, of course, at the voucher field in checkout. Go Cats! And you get 20% off your next purchase. That's all you got to do. Put the voucher code Go Cats in at checkout and you will get 20% off your next lovely bunch of flowers from Cyril Cook Florist. Go on, make someone's day and do it at 20% less the cost. All right. Round 9 on deck. And the Cats had to win, chaps. They absolutely could not suffer a defeat. And they were going up against a Giants team that the broadcast crew had to remind us we hadn't beaten them in the history of the AFLW. The Cats had never beaten the Giants, and they needed to do it for the first time on the weekend to have a hope at keeping their finals campaign alive. The Cats, as has been often the case, came out really hot in the first quarter. They put on 3 goals, 3-21 to the Giants, 1-1-7 in the first quarter and had that 14-point buffer, which was rapidly erased across the first part of the second term. The Giants via the boots of Eilish O'Dowd, Brodie Mowbray, and Tani Evans hitting the lead midway through the second quarter. But a goal to Rachel Kearns, who has been converted from defender to forward the last few weeks, put the Cats in front just before halftime. They led 4-5-29 to 4-3-27 at the main break. An arm wrestle in the third term. The Cats got the first goal via the boot of Michaela Bowen. That was answered immediately by Tani Evans with her third goal of the afternoon. The game seesawing near three-quarter time. Geelong got the lead back. The first goal of Chantal Mason's AFLW career, putting Geelong up 42-36 going into the final term. And from there, the Giants had chances via the boots of Huntington and Saroj, I think. Saroj. S-R-H-O-J. Saroj. I don't know. And then
I'm not going to try and help you.
The Giants missed their the Giants. Thanks, boys. The Giants missed their chances. The Cats did not. Aisling Maloney, Chantal Mason, and Kate Kenny in the space of 3.5 minutes put Geelong up by over 20 points. GWS would pull a goal back via the boot of Zali Goldsworthy, but the Cats would finish the game strongly. Goals to Georgie Prasparkas, 2 for her in her 50th match, and a finishing move from Chantal Mason from the pocket gave the Cats 11-6, 72 to 6-9-45 victory, 27 points. Chaps, perhaps most importantly, Geelong finally get a fourth quarter where they trounce the opposition. 5-1 in the final term when the game was on the line. I went to Johnny first last week. I'll come to you first here, Sambo. What were your just general takeaways from this 27-point victory for the Catters?
My main and most important takeaway was that every time the commentary team said Tani Evans, I couldn't help but think of a South African commentator saying Tiny Evans. I thought you'd forget it. Oh, it's Tani Evans.
Danny Archer and Tiny Evans.
And Tiny Evans.
Well, that's all we got time for on the recap tonight.
Yep.
I thought
it's nice knowing you.
Hit the most important part straight off the bat there.
Just lead with the headline.
I had to share this pleasant little mirthful ongoing joke that I had with myself.
Thanks, Sam.
It was.
We need a Danny Archer sound drop on the pod.
We did just the bit where he spells out his name, just for when he's like trying to like really get his accent right, so he spells out his name.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was yes, very gratifying that last quarter. Was worried going in. Even the commentary team were making note of it. They mentioned that the Cats really needed, in their mind, a goal or two before the final break to sort of go in with any ascendancy. So it was on my mind. That was obviously really good. The general, like, that's sort of the lasting impression really has been that last quarter. Because it was such a talking point for us prior to it. But overall the game was I said it to you guys last week. I said, we were a bit bit grumpy. I think we were a bit grumpy pants, bit negative. But I did say that, like, all it would take is one win, and I'll be like, the wind will be up me again. I'll be like, we're back on here. We're gonna come from the ropes, win this whole thing. And I could certainly feel that happen, especially with the sort of layering of that last quarter. So I greatly enjoyed it. Very buoyed by it, but I think overall it was still a very Geelong performance. I thought there was some things that worked really well. There was little flashes of moments. Like, particularly our entries inside 50, I think they weren't consistently brilliant, but I thought there was some moments there where, like, exactly that. And one of them was the Amy McDonald one, where it was very early in the game. And she was running in, and you could see her instinct was to blaze it straight to the square. And then she literally stops has enough, by the grace of God, has enough time to look, change her mind, and then still like pop on. And it was a brilliant kick, though, absolutely brilliant. Like,
Colin's on fire tonight.
He's on it. Colin's had one of his uppers before the show. We've told him he's really got to schedule his drug intake to coincide with the show. Downers when we're not recording.
He took a
uppers
massive rip of smelling salts just before we started the show,
Nice.
so he's on fire.
And some
passed
pickle
out,
juice.
and then he's just woken up then to hit the sound drop. Yeah, but that's specifically that inside 50 is exactly what you're talking about. Where you're talking about it's it's got to be a good kick, which it thankfully was. But also it's just like an absolute nightmare for the defense because they're chasing back or they're running out, and it's hard to defend it from behind and in front. Very difficult not to give away a free kick. Very very difficult to get to the ball first. And just off the line, so it's against the flow of where all the defensive players are running to. So that was to me like perfect. You can't do that every time because then they'll read it and they know what's happening. But if you do like 6 of those across a game, sprinkled throughout, 4 to 6 of those, I think they'll be really really damaging and really surprising to the defense. So I thought some of that was good, but yeah, I guess all of that to say, I still thought the hallmarks were there. There was some overuse by hands, some sort of tense moments where you're going, oh, just yep, no, now pass it off now. There was some sloppy use of it. There was probably a little bit of lack of structure in the forward line still. There was a couple of their return goals that just came just a little too easy. Like you felt like we were maybe not quite as set up as we should have been. So I guess that I'm just trying not to get carried away. I love the win. I thought it was great. Awesome to see. And I hope we can carry the momentum, but I don't want to, from our point of view, from the podcasting point of view, I guess I don't want it to just wash away the fact that it still wasn't like it's not a finished product still. So I guess part of it is so then we don't get too disappointed if things go sour next week or the week after or what have you.
Johnny,
Yeah.
some stats to hand pass into your point here. Geelong actually had more disposals, but much fewer inside 50s. I mean, it doesn't sound like much really, like 5 different, but 30 to 35. Like that's a fairly low inside 50 count for the Cats, and yet they score 17 times. They lose the clearances 22 to 26. They win contested ball. They win uncontested ball. And marks, John, 56 to 29 Geelong's way. Relatively low tackle count, 48 to 54 and 10-10 when it comes to tackles inside 50. What were your sort of thoughts in addition to what Sam's been saying? Like what struck you about this game?
But I just thought this, as Sam said, we were very down in the dumps last week. I'm feeling the same as Sam this week. Very buoyed, very energetic about this win, and feeling a bit different about this win. This win feels slightly different, even though the stats don't really favour us all that well, like in some, as they say, key stats. But I feel like all that sort of happened in that second, third quarter when it was on a real tight walk-in ledge thingy with Bob. And but I just thought the way the Cats were able to wrestle momentum back our way and do what other teams have done to us previous matches by absolutely smashing the opposition in that last quarter. Maybe a lot more optimistic about the rest of the season, about the next few matches that we can make finals, and that the page has been turned. The realization has happened that they are still a really bloody good team. Just needed that moment, that game to really ignite them. And I feel like I just got a sense that this game felt like that game that really united them as a team, because I thought in that fourth quarter they looked like they were playing as a team and not as the individuals. But I feel like they all worked together. They all got around each other. they all got around Chantal Mason. I feel like her 3 goals really ignited the team and got them pumped up and a lot more involved. And yeah, it just felt really different. Like the last few wins they had felt like we won, but did we really beat this team as convincing as we should have? And I feel like this time we did. And it was, like the tackles was great. The clearances, it helps win them, but it's also not the end of the world because we can still win it on the outside and win it in the defensive area, which I thought we did really well. Inside 50s, but we didn't have that many, but also the Giants. We're saying, how do we have so many inside 50s and not win? And I feel like that's down to the Cats' well organised, well planned defensive team. And again, felt like they were playing as a team, and not so many individual brilliances had to emerge to win this. I feel like everyone knew what their role was, everyone knew what their job was, and it just gave me a lot more optimism, a lot more confidence, a lot more happiness for this win. It was a great win, great way to win it, and also I feel like it's going to be a really exciting next few games to see what this team can do. Because I still got great faith that if we make finals and we play like this, maybe for a bit longer, then who knows what could happen. We could go all the way. But just overall, really felt different this win. It felt like something has changed in that unit, in the team.
I think too, I was wrestling with it during this because when we came out in that first quarter, I think that is arguably our best opening term this season, because we've had terms where we've pressured as well and maybe better. But some of the ball use in that first quarter, you highlighted it, Sam, that Amy McDonald kick, but there were others too. There were kicks from Kate Kenny, who we'll get into. We're going to sort of leave a lot of the individual player analysis for the Patreon section of the show because there's so many players to cover. But, it was her. I think Sermon had a kick that she pulled short, or it might have even been Kilpatrick. It was sort of a bit tricky. I found, not to get too El Negativo on the commentary team, but there was so much like, oh, nice pass from Sermon or Friswell. And it's like, no, that's Kilpatrick. Or and so I'm trying to remember. I think it might have actually been Kilpatrick, who had a really nice sort of pulled kick where she could have blazed to the top of the square, but sort of put it out sort of more like 25, 30 meters out. I thought we moved the ball really, really promisingly in that first quarter. And it wasn't just inside 50. It was how we transitioned as well. I thought we were fearless and crisp with the way we used the football. Now, that sort of came a little bit unstuck through the second and third quarters, but I thought for the most part in the first and the fourth, that was some of Geelong's sharpest ball movement. And I can't help but think it coincided with not overthinking it as much, with moving it at speed and just taking some of that sort of over processing out of things. And again, we'll analyze the player part more in Patreon, but I also can't help but think we were advantaged by the presence of players like Tipping and Dunlop, who I thought had a fairly good day in the ruck and allowed us to really control. I felt like we really controlled the clearance situation early and late. So when the game was there to be opened up to start, and then when the game was there to be closed, I thought the Cats stoppage setup really came to the party, and it started with our talls. What do you think goes wrong for the Cats in those second and third quarters? Like, or the patch where the Giants really roared back into things. What did you see that gave you any sort of concern? Because there was a real patch where the Giants were sort of in control of the game almost, or they were damaging us, is what I would say. So was there anything that stood out to you? And do you think we fixed those things in game? Did the Giants just fail to execute? What did you see that meant Geelong won this game instead of lost it?
I thought they. Oh, sorry. I thought
You-
their ball use, sharpened up a bit. rather than us dropping the ball. I thought their ball use sharpened up a bit. I thought we got sucked into that thing that we can get sucked into semi-regularly of like just ball chasing. There was a couple of times there, and this is, I'm not. I know less. I know less about football than every one of those players on the field. So this isn't me saying, this is what you should. This is how I do it. Blah blah blah. But when you're from the the telecast point of view, when you've got the full range of it, there was times there where you could really see the system break down. I thought when there was that overlapping handball from the Giants, and we just didn't communicate, didn't have time to communicate, or like there was a misunderstanding. And so one player is coming in from the side to lay pressure. And rather than the next player in front of the player that's got the ball following their player back with the movement of the ball, they charged in. And then it's just a simple little hand pass over the top to the next player that's now free, or a kick over the top as it was sometimes. And I thought we did really well to mostly have the screws really tight on that. But I thought there were patches of like, not whole quarters, but like patches of like 6 minutes where we were just chasing our own tail a little bit. We were just rushing. Sometimes there's 3 players trying to tackle one player. And you kind of go, I just don't think I don't think that's ideal. I don't think that's their intention. I think they're all in the moment going, I'm going to attack this player. And then, 2 other teammates have also had the same decision. And so then they're not covering each other. And I feel like that makes it look really easy for the opposition. It looks like everything's falling apart. It looks like chaos. The defenders are getting repeat entries against them, and they're kind of throwing their hands up going, like, what are we doing? How's the ball sort of ricocheting back in here so quickly? And so that's the thing that I feel like went wrong. And one of the things that I suppose we fixed up in the fourth term, but I actually kind of think it was fixed mostly because we starved them of the ball. I don't have any kind of possession worm here, but I'd love to see the possession stats per quarter, because I felt like they just didn't get a look. Like, I felt like they came out and they apparently had a big rev up from the coach at 3/4 time. Do this, we'll win. And then it kind of felt a little bit like what Brisbane did to the men's in the grand final, where you're like, right, okay, we know what we got to do, and then you just didn't even get the ball, didn't even get a chance to try. So I'm not 100% sure that we fixed up that structure. I'm sure we would have, because we had a chance to reset a little bit. But yeah, I don't know if you guys found that, but I felt like it was that our players were getting tired. There were some times there where really, some of our gun players that never stopped running. Bowen, Prasparkas, Morrison, even Maloney when she came back. Parry did it a couple of times. Would come in and lay a tackle that wasn't effective, and then you would see them with the hands on the hips, they're kind of like just gassed because they were doing all this running that just wasn't effective. And I feel like it's a real slippery slope when that stuff happens, and I've seen that spiral out of control for them this year. And so I guess it was the good part about it is it didn't spiral out of control. It happened in patches, and we generally sort of seemed to figure it out.
Yeah, I think when we did lose control of the game was just when the Giants had applied that immense pressure on us, and where they were chasing us everywhere and putting that pressure on, and we just weren't able to fully get around it straight away. And I thought, they were pressuring, they were getting us into those really tight areas where we just overused the handball a little bit too much. So I think once the Cats had worked that out, it was like, this is how they're going to play. This is how they're going to play this game. It's just immense pressure and pressure us into making mistakes. And I feel like that's when the Cats sort of changed it up a little bit by taking a bit of the sting out of the game, by getting a few more marks, a few more kick-to-kicks, just to settle things down and just get them on the back foot. And also, as Sam said, we looked a bit gassed throughout some of the game as well. So it was probably also just to get some energy back into those legs and get them back to a good space to really attack that last quarter. So yeah, I think it was just To me, it was mainly just the way the Giants pressured us and were able to, yeah, as I said, get us into those really tight, uncomfortable areas where you just go, I can't do anything but handball to this player, who's then in immense pressure straight away. So they've got a handball to this other player who's, and it's all just in that like tiny 10 by 10 meter square where you're not moving anywhere, and the Giants don't have to work too hard to pressure us. And yeah, it was well worked by them. But yeah, as I said, I think once the Cats worked out what was happening, I think they were able to use their experience, their knowledge of the game, knowledge of the ground to really open it up a bit more and just take away that pressure game from the Giants and then run over them. And so yeah, it's on field and off field. I think it was a good part of working out what the Giants were doing to us. The mute's got you, Sam.
I know. Leave
And
me
me.
alone.
And me
I
at the
will.
same
I will
time.
say with the being gassed thing, like that to me was not across the whole game. It was more moments where you could tell someone had been run, and they just couldn't do it anymore. But I will say that we had our first really good fourth quarter, and I do think the time on ground stats are down. Like this is something we kind of theorized about earlier in the month about like how long some of these players, our star players, were spending on the ground, and we were struggling to run out the game. Now here we had a dip in the middle that finished strong, and I feel like we had players playing less game time. Still substantial. Like Georgie Prasparkas played 88%. That's not to be sniffed at. That's a lot of time on the ground. But Georgie Prasparkas was going in the 90s, in the mid 90s. Nina Morrison's 87, Becky Webster's 82, Crockett Grill's 81, Rachel Kern's 77. So
it definitely felt like Georgie wasn't around the ball as much as was seen. And I think
that might be Sermon too.
Sermon going in there and giving Georgie that break. Maybe we need to give Georgie, these star players, a bit of a break. So when the fourth quarter comes in, our star players aren't out there absolutely buggered trying to drag the team over the line for a win. And then the oppositions, they've worked out how their time and ground suits them perfectly. So a nice spot there, Sam. So that's definitely one where I did notice a few players didn't seem to be impacting throughout the entire game as much as we've seen, or as often as they usually would early on in the game. But then that last quarter, Georgie was absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, it's almost like we set up with our ideal lineup in the first quarter, did the job, and then gave some people a rest, moved things around through the middle of the game, and then when that fourth quarter started, went back to prime movers in prime positions where we want everybody. Amy McDonald was only like 60-something% time on ground, but had an impact. I thought she was quite effective. The only ones that had really high numbers were ones that make sense. Claudia Gunjaka makes sense to have her out there most of the day being a key back. Georgie Rankin also. Michaela Bowen, 91. So she's probably, and also Ashley Maloney also with 90. But Michaela Bowen's probably had the highest of that kind of the ground coverage players, but it also kind of makes sense because she's a bit of a dynamo. And they probably just can't drag her off the ground.
There's a few other players I reckon
I'd just say too,
should get some more time, especially one that we'll get into in the Patreon.
Just going to say quickly before we jump into the votes, which we rattle out just shortly. Caitlin Tipping, 15 hitouts, second on the ground behind Fleur Davies with 17. Yeah, and Tipping played 65% game time, which I thought was a good nod towards her sort of like her health, because that's been a concern. Obviously coming into the season, she played 65% game time. I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah. She just looks like if she can have a couple of uninterrupted sort of patches of footy, I think she can really be a difference-making kind of ruck. She just seems like a natural-born footy player, despite the fact she's played volleyball But I guess there's a lot of skills that are probably transferable from volleyball to playing ruck. Having played neither, I'm just making an uneducated assumption. Let's do votes for players who stood out to us and did other stuff good too. Johnny, you can lead us off
Yes.
tonight with your 1, 2, and 3.
This week was struggling. Are we just going to name the players and talk about it in Patreon?
Yeah, we'll talk about it in the Patreon.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's rattle through them. Tough week, but I'm pretty happy with what I've landed with. One is Chantal Mason, giving 2 to Georgie Prasparkas, and I'm going to give my 3 to Michaela Bowen.
I've got
Nice. I like it. Sam.
1 to Georgie Rankin, 2 to Michaela Bowen, and 3 to Georgie Prasparkas.
Love it. I went 1 to Aisling Maloney, 2 for Michaela Bowen, and I went 3 to Georgie Prasparkas. All right, those were our votes for players who stood out to us and did other stuff good too. We are now going to duck over to Patreon for about 40 minutes. We will unpack more individual player thoughts, have a look ahead to next week, and maybe I'll try and grill Sam and John about what media they've been consuming recently. I just know they consume so much, chaps. And there's a lot of chat. If you're not a part of the Hoops Crew Discord, by the way, you really should be, because there's a lot of different angles over there. Lots of footy chat, but also there's a gaming chat, there's a music chat, and I've very much enjoyed that the last couple of weeks since the season's ended. It's been a nice way to keep in contact with people who, for whatever reason, might otherwise drop off after the AFL men's sort of ends. A lot of people move on to cricket season or whatever. It's been a nice way to keep in contact with some people. So jump on over on that. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, all the stuff on your favorite podcast app. Chuck us a 5-star rating there. Follow us on YouTube. And until next time, go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.